Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to Dwarf Fortress with Teemo. I'm going to be going into the second of a series of tutorials. This is on Minecarts. So in this tutorial, I'm going to go into showing how a working minecart system will actually benefit your fort. So I have a working fort. Right now, my first minecart track is right here. I've got a wood stockpile right on the surface, right near where my entrance is. The stockpile is feeding into this minecart right here. The minecart track from there goes down under the ground a couple levels and ends up right here. Right now I've got an empty stockpile just because I ran out of wood and I just designated some trees to chop. So my dwarves will go start filling up this, filling wood into the minecart. And I've actually got, I think, a kick command to send it down to the bottom. Because this is just one single track for the wood. And then they might even kick it back up. I don't remember if it's a kick or a guide. I can actually take a look. The wood going back up is a guide. Guide's back up. So they actually just kicked it down, and a whole bunch of wood is down bottom, and then the dwarf guided it back up. So they'll fill this back up again. Once it's filled up, dwarf will come over and kick it, and it'll drop back down, and we can actually watch that real quick. Looks like they're doing it pretty quick. Lots of dwarves work. How we doing on? Oh, the wood's only at 10%. They should get to it pretty. All right. So it looks like it goes for about 10 logs, and then it'll be full. See, I've got a lot of routes going right now. Alright, so 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, and then he kicked it down. Comes down, they drops off all the logs, and then the guy brought the logs back up to the top, and then we got an empty minecart again. So that's kind of how that works. Now, what I have over here, so that's a very simple one, just from the surface level, and if I wanted to go multiple levels down, I could go multiple levels down. There's no turns in it. It just goes straight, and I could kick it down because the kick only does about 20,000 speed is the initial kick. Then it goes down one level here and one level here, which picks up another about 5,000 speed per level. So it's going about 30,000 speed when it gets to here, and this is a full stop, which does a negative 50,000. So it hits it with about 30,000. It loses like 10 speed for every just flat track, so it's a little less than 30,000. It doesn't pick up quite 5,000 as it goes up. So you can actually, from here, I could kick it back up because it'll get the 20,000 speed. It'll only lose about 10,000 on the way up, and it'll stop right there. So I was kicking it back up and down, but I decided to just do a guide up and a kick down. Now, the little bit more complicated one is my stone. So I've got multiple levels. So here's the first level I could be mining stuff out. And I'm going to go ahead and just designate some mining area so that it see what happens. So I'll just designate a big area. I don't really care what type of stone it is. You can see I've got two setups here, and I'll explain what those are in a second. But I'm just going to give some mining orders on multiple levels here so the dwarves will start mining. So I've got just this same track runs by, a stockpile here on this level, a stockpile here on this level, and then a stockpile here on this level. And all of those levels I can now mine out stuff for the dwarves. And they'll put all the ore into these input. And dwarves will just hit up the closest stockpile when they're looking for some place to drop something. I probably don't need the cutters to do this chopping anymore. And then all the way down at the bottom, I've actually got my metal industry. So my metal industry is at the bottom, and then I've got my regular stone industry way up at the top. So I've got my mason up here, my stone worker. So what I've done is, also I had some mine out at the beginning, so I've actually got a simple stone pile here that I grabbed all the stone from the top, and they were put into this minecart, and it was dropping down to this stone pile. So this stone pile takes all types of stone. It'll accept anything because from the top this took all types of stone. It didn't matter what it was. And then this cart is picking up just metals. And it's taken metals. There's 2 stops on it. It's actually my metals 4 stop. So my metals 4 stop, the pickup is right here, and the drop off is all the way down at the bottom at the metals industry. And all of these routes I've got, and so here's the drop off for the metals with all of that. And all of these routes, I've got it so that the dwarves are guiding it. When the dwarves are guiding a minecart, they kind of ignore the laws of physics, and they can actually guide minecarts right by each other, right by other stuff. It's completely safe when the dwarves are guiding the minecarts. So it's perfectly fine for me to have. You can see I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 minecarts are on this route. And it's perfectly fine to do that because the dwarves are all guiding it everywhere they go. So on all of these, I've got and I'll show you right here with the metals 4. The metals 4 pickup, I've got it kind of just the default settings where it'll guide north immediately if it's full. It'll guide north every 2 weeks if it's half full, and every month if it's got nothing in it. And really, it's not that it has nothing in it. It'll probably have, well, it might be nothing in it, but and that's just basically picking it up. Once a month, it'll go, even if there's very little in there. And then every 2 weeks, even if it's not completely full, it'll go. And then if you get it completely full, it'll just go. So that's why it's set that way, is so that you get movement, even if you're not filling it up all the way. And this is picking from this stockpile, and it's picking metals. And the reason why it's doing that is because all the different types of ore are coming down from up above. And the ones that are metals, I want to continue down to the other stockpile. Now, coming up to it, all on these stockpiles, I've got 2 different sets, and I'll let this run, 2 different minecarts coming up. So I got one minecart for non-metallic stone, and it also is non-flux stone. So the non-metallic, non-flux, leaves from the north here, goes up to the top, and drops it off here at this little minecart stop here. If it's a metal one, it gets loaded into this minecart and will head down south. So this stockpile here takes everything, but that these minecarts are sorted so that it only accepts the type of stone for the destination that I want it to go. And all of these are just minecart routes that have 1 pickup and 1 drop off. So you see I have ore 1, ore 2, ore 3. All of these are just picking up. For the ores, it's the non-metallic ores, non-flux ores. And for the metals, metal 1, metal 2, metal 3, that's all my metal ores plus my flux stones are going down bottom to support my metal industry. So my dwarves here are getting more stones. And they're being kind of silly because it looks like they're I think what's happening here is they're getting a job to put a stone into this particular stockpile, and then the closest stone is on a different level, so they go run and grab it. But that's okay. It's still more efficient to take it a couple levels like that than it is to take it all the way to the stone pile. And this is still not showing completely what can be done, because this level here that I'm mining out, or say like this level that I'm actually mining out, this could actually be 30 or 40 Z levels away. And so rather than lugging all of the stone 30 or 40 Z levels, I'm lugging the stone onto the same Z level right here. And then once I have a full minecart, then I'm taking the minecart down the rest of the Z levels to get to wherever it needs to go. So it basically saves just a lot of time and effort for your dwarves to do it this way. The other thing I've done, and you don't really need to do it so much with guided minecarts, but if you were going to set up a system where the minecarts are just going on their own, say you just set up a system where you could just kick the minecarts and the track is set up so that you can get the minecart to where it's going, then an unguided minecart is just careening down the track, and if dwarves go over it, they can get hurt. And just in case I do that in the future, I set up the traffic. So everywhere that I have a minecart, I have it set up to be restricted, just to reduce the amount of time the dwarves are spending on the tracks. And that'll help out a lot. You could do even more stuff like make the track routes pretty much inaccessible to your dwarves. So, and even what I've done so far makes it kind of, there's no real point for them to take this route, because I have these other routes over here, and because this is designated as no traffic, they generally don't walk up and down the minecart routes unless they're pushing a minecart. When they're pushing a minecart, it makes the most sense for them to take the minecart route. That's just how it is. But when they're not pushing a minecart, they don't generally walk up and down those, which is nice. That being said, it's still just a calculation. So you can see here that this is set to just 25. If I were to set this all the way up to 100, it would make the calculation even worse for them. So that's probably what you would want to do with a minecart route, especially if you're kicking them places. So I think that's about all I wanted to show. And the other thing I wanted to show is just so I basically have a quantum stockpile set up with my minecarts. So what you could do as well is just not have a catch stockpile like this. I could just have an open spot that it dumps. And then if you don't want to use these quantum stockpiles where it piles all up in one square like this, if for some reason you want to use full stockpiles with bins, you would just not put a stockpile here at the end. You would just have it dump off, and you would want to dump off right next to where you have a large, say, wood stockpile or stone stockpile. I use quantum stockpiles for lots of reasons, and so I don't really mind. And if you actually think about it, like, even these quantum stockpiles are essentially the same thing as this other track. The only difference is the cart just stays there on a track stop, and you fill it up and it immediately just dumps into the quantum stockpile. I'm doing the same thing with actual minecart routes now. It's just that my input is now can be really far away from my output, and a dwarf will just push the minecart once it's full up and ready to go. I think that's about all I wanted to show with this one. The next one, I'm going to have a little bit more fun with some of these, because I'm going to show some of the automation you could do. So I'm going to be sending minecarts around automatically, and with those you can actually create traps, and you can create even less work for your dwarves, because you can just have them kicking the minecarts around and having it. You can kick a minecart and have it climb up 30 Z levels. I'll probably use this same fort and just show you how to do it with this one, but it's pretty neat, and we'll get into that in episode number 3. So hopefully this helped out showing how minecarts could actually be used and how they function in a fort. Have a good night, everybody.